While relocating the Lone Pilgrim Cemetery of South Charleston, Ohio in 1954, making way for what would later be known as Highway US 42 running Louisville to Cleveland, several of the graves had to be exhumed and, depending on the status of the casket therein, bodies relocated into fresh receptacles. One such was the grave of Jonathan Rash, born in 1843 and, according to his headstone, died in 1898, whose casket had deteriorated to the point that the lid had caved in and dirt had filled in the container. Jeffrey Martin, funeral director of the Lone Pilgrim, signed off on the disinterment, and the casket was carefully removed from its plot along with 82 others. Of those 82, 14 required the body to be removed from its casket, all of which had been falling apart due to the slight acidity of the soil in the region and the wildlife that had burrowed on the grounds. And of those 14, only one offered any semblance of explanation of the discoveries made on those grounds that October. What remained of Jonathan Rash and the letter he left behind in a nearly illegible hand? I am buried alive. No, I was buried alive, and I fear whenever this is read I will not be. I know I will not be. Curse the superstitions of my generation for giving man such false hopes. Curse this wretched box and the wretched hands that put me... Steady yourself, John. You must. You know the oxygen will only last for a couple of hours more down here. And you do know that you're down here, don't you? Your personal effects tell as much. Darlene, bless her heart, followed my word and will to the letter, including this pen and pad from my breast pocket. Mere grave goods as I saw it then, all I have as I see it now. Although I cannot see them plainly, of course. I know I shall never see them so. For though Darlene, per my instructions, had buried with me my pipe and lighter, I can feel them both against my thigh, beneath the pad onto which I scribbled this. I know even the smallest flame would swallow up the oxygen down here. In here, faster than I ever could. So I lie here in the darkness, utter darkness, black as pitch, like the womb if one could remember it. And though just above my nose by an inch or two I cannot see the roof of this wretched casket, although I can see it plainly in my mind's eye, I did pick it out myself after all, with its near almond shade and pillowy texture, smothering me without so much as a touch. Lord, why had I not chosen the damned mausoleum up there? Why had I not requested to be buried alongside a crowbar and a shovel? At least I hadn't willed to be cremated. No, John. No time for hysterics. No time for regrets. No time at all. Only to breathe and breathe slowly, measuredly. Hyperventilating will only exacerbate this, and you know it. Remember your fallen brothers in the war, the ones ripped apart by bullet and blade, how they would gasp and heave as they lie on their backs, clutching at themselves just as you do now. Stop that, for heaven's sake, you must. Breathe carefully. Breathe in. Breathe out. Just like that, John. Just like that. Like a whistle through pursed lips as they taught you in the service. 5 seconds in. 5 seconds held. 5 seconds out. And over again. Over until... Damn it, this is fruitless and you know it. What's the point, anyhow? An hour more of living, perhaps? No, This is not living. This is breathing. Barely surviving. Holding your breath in the void until it completely takes. Curse it, the damn pen keeps slipping away from my fingers, which are trembling as it is. My whole body is wrapped in a thick layer of sweat that soaks the awful suit I'm pressed into. I feel as if I'm melting away, on the brink of hell. No. Hell is brighter. I'll tell you where I am, John. I'll tell you. Lone Pilgrim. How fitting a name. How abysmally ironic. I'm under the sycamore, no doubt. Nearest that old bench and the grave of my late Uncle Henry, God rest his soul, should such a thing exist. I can still remember the day of his funeral. A day from my youth. The fresh smell of the lilies, the cry of my mother, the great sound of the church bell. The bell! The bell, John, that's it! In your panic you had forgotten all about it. Perhaps I owe this superstition of this generation an apology. For the same ones that had given me such a false hope had gifted me a real one in the form of this string above my head that I now pull. And pull. And breathe. And breathe, John. Don't excite yourself. Oh, who am I kidding? I cannot hear myself think, for my heart beats in my ears like a drum as I scribble this with one hand and yank that blessed string in the other. Truly, Lord, bless it! I know at any moment the undertaker, perhaps frightened out of his wits, yes, will hear the bell up there and dig me out of this horrid earth. I suppose if I'm truly 6 feet beneath, the dig should take only a matter of hours at most. Perhaps less to the trained gravedigger. If he hears it, that is. Now, when he hears it, John. When? Alas, I cannot. The silence down here is deafening, and even if it weren't, the sound of my own heart would be, drowning out even the faintest of ringings. So I'll wait. I'll wait until this bell is heard. Surely it is, for the churchyards are quiet places, unless it's raining up there. Either that or... Lord, I beg of you that night has not fallen. I pray it isn't so, for if indeed the daylight has retired, then surely the undertaker has too. And even though his home rests on the graveyard's grounds, it is unlikely that so small a bell be heard through the solid wall. Truly there's no way of knowing how long I've been down here, nor the timing of my untimely burial. Meaning I know not whether it is day or night, raining or clear skied above, or whether this string even rings a damned bell at all. Curse this box and the darkness it holds me in. Curse every false hope in my frantic heart. Oh, won't it shut up? With such a healthy heart, how in God's name am I down here anyway? What fool signed my death certificate? My brother-in-law. Oh, I cannot stop laughing at the mere thought, but I must. You must, John. Remember the oxygen. Yes. Remember. Now my laughter turns to tears, and they too cannot stop. Do you know why, John? I know you do. No longer is it merely the thought of dying in a box meant for the already dead, but running out of ink in this pen, out of paper in this pad. That thought rattles me to my bones. But enough of bones. That one is a sore topic. Again I ask you, how was I entombed prematurely? How? I'd never grown ill, never suffered the palsy, never anything more than the common cold. Perhaps I had suffered some form of shock. Perhaps I had rendered myself drunk on wine. Perhaps it was a bit of both. Perhaps I had contracted an illness whose very nature corrupted my memory of it so. Or perhaps there is no good reason. Perhaps it was a simple misdiagnosis, a misread bit of obscene penmanship. Lord knows this very pad will suffer the same fate. Perhaps the coroner feared contamination on account of my not-so-dead body and signed off my certificate in haste. I know not why, but at minimum this speculation keeps my mind off of my current predicament. I was a man well versed in medical science, after all. No, I am. 14 pages behind this initial recorded letter in the medical pad, a considerable distance, a second one was discovered. This note, like the first, was written in a nearly illegible hand, with tears in the paper throughout. However, unlike the previously recorded words of Jonathan Rash, the spacing, size, and orientation of the letters therein were found to be considerably more unkempt, complete with words that ran off the page and large paragraphs of text scratched out altogether. For the sake of this documentation, these words have been preserved. Furthermore, it is apparent that this note was written under both great distress and a lack of oxygen. It is to be read within such a context. However, this context does not explain the discoveries of October 1954, nor what remained of Jonathan Rash. I know not the hour of when I drifted off into slumber, but I have since awakened. What awakened me I cannot say. However, it may verily be the stench. The stench, though I cannot speak with certainty, likely proceeds from me. It is a foul, offensive odour, an odour of excrement and urine. It would seem in my rest that I have soiled myself, no doubt an effect of the immense stress on my body. You would think that I could feel these bodily fluids on my person, but alas, I cannot, for my body has gone numb from immobility, and my muscles have seemingly slowed. Even the hand that pens this note is writing with considerable toughness. I consider these sensations, or rather the lack thereof, a blessing, if for nothing else than to calm me. Likewise, the atmosphere about me has changed too. The air is stagnant and chilled. All sound has escaped it, as it has my ears. I yell to make certain that deafness has not overcome me. It hasn't. Blindness, on the other hand, I cannot be so assured of. Truthfully, I cannot be assured of any of my senses, for the senses are fickle things just as man is. I recall a man from my battalion, I believe his name too was Jonathan, and that the coincidence was a source of, albeit meagre, comfort to him in his final moments, who swore to me with his last breaths that there was a bullet lodged into his right leg, just above the knee. I didn't have the heart to tell him, nor did he have the time to hear me, that the leg had been completely severed, likely due to a landmine. Such was a phantom pain, a trick of senses, and I fear that this numbness, this coolness across my body is of the same sort, as is the new smell that fills my nostrils. No longer the stench of excrement that had seized me but moments ago. This is the smell of food. Sweet, fresh meat. A savory scent, one that renders me to drool, although once more I cannot feel it. This sensation, I know, is but a tandem effort of both my mind and stomach to torment me. Yet I humour this temptation despite knowing its origins. The scent reminds me of my father, who from an early age studied my predisposition to both the medical sciences and the culinary arts. In fact, if not for the former, I suppose the latter would have been my vocation in the service. It was my father and his brother, my late Uncle Henry, who I presume is buried beside me at this very moment, as I transcribe these words, who introduced me to Johnny cakes, cabbage stew, and head cheese well before the mess cooks in Portland ever did. And it is that latter dish, the head cheese, which I smell plainly now, despite my depth beneath the soil and the sheer absurdity of such fair cooking above me. That is how I know the smell, however convincing, is only in my mind. That is how I know. But is that scratching sound? Is that indeed only in my mind? Heavens, yes. Foolish thing to even pen, John. Foolish indeed. All you have left is your mind. Don't let that get buried too. Perhaps the smell and the queer sound is the result of some wild critter burrowed beneath the earth, possibly even at the feet of my late uncle beside me. A mole, perhaps. A pesky rodent, or some kind of insect. God forbid, if there is a God. Such an insect or mammal would have to be large, monstrously so. No, I will not entertain the idea of such creatures feasting upon my departed relative. If such is so, then surely they would feast upon me. These are dreadful things to consider. However, consideration, and this pen and that pad to do so, are all that I have. For I am alone down here. Quit crying, Jonathan. I am alone in the dark, except for the creature beyond this wretched box. I share its company, do I not? Perhaps it's one of those large moles, a mother maybe, who's discovered her young dead. That would explain the sound and the smell of meat, but not one so delectable. Unless I truly am going mad. Maybe I already have, because moles don't groan. Certainly not in a deep baritone like that. Heavens, what in God's name is that? Uncle Henry? Foolish, John. Absolutely foolish indeed. Dwell upon things of sound mind, not of this. Your mind is all you've got left. Damn fool. Such a sound was nothing but the growling of your own stomach. Think of the sciences which you love. Think of medicine, yes, of how a nice hot tea of white snake root might completely shake this chill, this fever, which has temporarily seized you. Surely it'll only be temporary. Surely indeed. Perhaps the sound is but an auditory illusion, one not coming from beside you, but from above, from the undertaker's shovel. Praise God! I will not be buried alive much longer. But shovels don't groan, John. Yes, they do. In fact, they do if they're old. They do if they're worn. But they don't sound like Uncle Henry, do they? The way he used to gruff, the way he'd clear his throat. Maybe you're not buried alive after all. That is not Uncle Henry. You're a man of logic and science, John. You're a man above such superstitious babble. This is exactly the humbug you've so desperately quarrelled with all your life. Don't lose that battle at the end of it. No, it is not the end. So long as that sweet smell persists above, it will not be the end of Jonathan Rash. I just need to follow it. And by the sound of it, the scratching, the groaning, whatever the hell it is following it too. And it's not alone. No, I am not alone. There are more sounds around me. Scratching, More groaning. Surely this damn lid above me can be opened if I just push hard enough. I'll break it if I must. I must move, lest this rigidity, this stiffness which has seized me, cease me. I must stop drooling. To get to the source of that blessed smell, I must. The remaining pages of the medical pad were torn and empty, as was the casket itself. The remains of Jonathan Rash, along with those of the 14 other exhumed bodies, and presumably the rest of the 82 graves within the Lone Pilgrim Cemetery, have yet to be discovered.